It's Talk with your host, Reggie B. Come on, let's all join in. Free your voice, it's your choice, alright here. Oh, simply stray talk.
Hey, Melissa. How you doing, my love? What's going on?
Not much, but listen, I tried to call you the other day to tell you about the drama at Tanya's kid's birthday party.
Oh, I know. I wanted to be there. But you know what running your own business is like? It's a 24/7 thing if you want to be successful. But anyway, enough of all of that. What happened?
Angelique, let me tell you, everything was cool at first. The kids were having fun, people were talking and laughing. Reggie was stuffing his face with cake.
Wait, I thought he was supposed to be washing his sugar.
Oh, don't get me started on that whole foolish situation. Anyway, I overheard someone arguing in the next room, and guess who it was?
Ugh, don't tell me. The kids were arguing at the party.
No, it was James yelling at some lady in the middle of the kids' party.
Psycho James. Bad breath James. Oh, I can't stand him.
Yes, the one and only. Believe me, I was in full-blown fight mode.
Oh, wait a minute. So where was Reggie when all of this happened?
I told Reggie, go get your friend who was causing a scene at a children's party. Then he brought him back to where I was, and I was like, why did you bring him over here? Next thing I know, girl, I'm all in his face standing next to a baseball bat.
Okay. Let me get this straight. This fake, grown-ass man was yelling at a woman in the middle of a kids' party with no regard for the kids.
Yes, he was. Until Reggie asked him to leave.
I still don't understand why Reggie even associates with him. You know, a couple of weeks back, I told Reggie exactly how I feel about him. Oh, I wish I was there. Let me tell you, it would have been all cars, trains, and fire. Girl, this makes me so mad.
I asked Reggie why he puts up with him. He didn't go into details, but he did mention that his childhood was troubled.
Oh, whatever. Troubled childhood? Poor Psycho James has a troubled childhood, and we're supposed to believe that.
Let me think. No.
You know what, yeah? Hold on.
Okay, what are you up to?
It's me, it's Reggie B. What's up, my friend?
Why can't you ever answer the phone like a regular person?
Where do you get these corny lines from? You know, that's why your ass is single.
So why are you friends with James again?
Great question. And why is having childhood issues an excuse for his behavior now?
Well, childhood issues...
Shh, listen, don't make excuses. That's how you almost lost one of your besties, remember?
No, I get it.
Shh. Exactly. He needs a good, swift kick, as a reminder.
Did I tell you I had to threaten him with both of us going to jail before he actually went and said something to that psycho at the party?
What? Are you serious? Well, ain't the plot surely getting bigger?
In all fairness...
Shh. We're talking quiet, please. Hey, I'm cooking shrimp and salmon, by the way.
I like that. Oh, did I tell you he tried to turn Reggie against me?
Are you serious right now? Please tell me Reggie had your back.
Now, I will say this. Reggie had my back. He even stepped in front of James.
You see, that's our friend, and he better respect it.
Hold on. I got some tea to spill on how your name came up in the situation.
My name? I wasn't even there.
James said, don't be acting all stuck up like your friend Angelique. I told him if he had something to say about you, say it to your face.
Stuck up? So he had the cheek to call me stuck up. Okay, first off...
Uh-oh, here we go.
Shut up, Reggie. Who does that psycho think he is to call me stuck up and then try to divide my friends? He doesn't even know me like that. Reggie, am I stuck up? No, exactly. I'm not. Oh, let me tell you this. The next time I see that bad breath psycho, it's on like Donkey Kong. Let him step into my space and I will tear his ass up like a comet flying into Jupiter.
Girl, he don't want no part of us. I told him, if you feel bold and he can handle leaping into the sun, make that jump so I can light his ass up.
Ooh, he can get a double beating. I need a glass of wine right about now. You know what? The food is almost ready. We can talk about this more when you two get here.
Okay, I'm ready with Reggie since it's on the way for him. Reggie, why are you so quiet?
Yeah, I put you on a freeway so you can be a part of the conversation.
Where am I going?
Duh, we're going to hang out with Angelique for dinner. You're picking me up, remember, since it's on the way?
Hold on. When did we set all this up?
I said I was cooking. Were you not listening? And then Melissa said you were picking her up. What's the matter with you, man?
Are you coming? I'm hungry.
Yeah, Reggie, I even have some cake and ice cream for dessert.
Oh, that's all you had to say. Well, I'm on the way. Bye.
Is Reggie off the call?
Yeah, he's hung up.
So you're giving him cake and ice cream?
Girl, no. I just said that so he'd hurry his ass up.
That's my bestie. Welcome to another episode of the Simply Straight Talk Show with your host, Reggie Maddox. And today, we got some real talk on this thing called life just for you. Y'all know what we about to do. Let's start the show.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Simply Straight Talk Show. This is your host, Reggie Maddox. And man, today we are going to talk about, has your childhood affected your adulthood? Now, y'all know we all got things from our childhood, some good, some bad. We're going to get into that. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in each week. Thank everybody for listening and checking it out. I'm appreciating all the feedback. So, you know what I'm saying? I just want to show y'all some love because y'all are definitely showing me some love. Shout out to my homie, man, like Tone G, Les Concierge Services. And I also want to give a shout out to Angelique, Toonlover, Melissa, you know what I'm saying? Those are the voices y'all hear in the intros of the shows every week. So gotta show them some love and respect as always, because two of the best people to work with. Now, let's get into today's show. Today, we're going to talk about how your childhood could be affecting your adulthood. Now, this is something that people either want to forget about, or they just simply say, you know what? It don't happen to me. My childhood don't affect my adulthood. I'm a grown person, grown man, grown woman. I do things because I want to. But we are all impacted by our environment in some ways, and that includes our childhood. Now, I wanted to start the conversation off by asking you this. I want you to think of your early years, okay? Think about your early childhood now and tell me what comes to mind. And be honest about it. What comes to mind when you think about your early childhood? And to kind of help you go through this process, while I'm talking, just kind of reflect back, think about it. Because now I want to give you two childhood scenarios, okay? The first is called childhood number one, okay? So here's childhood number one. Childhood number one. Do you picture playing with your sisters, your brothers, or your cousins? How about your parents, y'all laughing and playing with you? You're having a good time with your parents. They're active. The family's hanging out together. You're sitting at the family table for family meals. You're eating, and it's just crazy fun times with your family. Or do you reflect on something like maybe prom night, a high school football game, or a high school dance? And for some people, it might be things like diving into a nice watermelon, on a hot summer day with your family, and, stuff like that. You might be giggling with your parents, playing around on the swings, on the playground. It might have been a family outing. Maybe you were just biking around the block, with your sisters or your siblings or whatever. Maybe gathering y'all all watching a nice movie, with the whole family. Now, this doesn't mean that your family did not have problems, but for the most part, you probably grew up in a warm, loving, and positive upbringing, home. That was the environment you was brought up with. You saw your parents together, you saw them interact together, and it don't mean everything was perfect, but the majority of your childhood was pretty much, it was happy. You liked your childhood. You liked your parents. You know what I'm saying? So you got good memories, although there might be little fights between you and your sister you might think about, or your brother, or, you might remember cute moments with your parents, stuff like that. And that's how a childhood should be. You should be able to reflect back and be happy about your childhood, the things you saw with your parents, the things you experienced with your siblings, the things you experienced at your school, the things you experienced in the neighborhood. These are the things you should be able to look back and be happy and say, hey, it was a great learning lesson. On the other hand, we have childhood number 2. Now, many of us have a different experience, when it comes to our childhood. And you may be among the many people who don't have those lovely, all warm and fuzzy childhood memories. And some of us, you might have darker memories that kind of crowd out the happy memories of your family life. Single parent homes with a mother or father that struggle to provide. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe your parents argued constantly and there was, just a few family times or maybe a few family outings. They were just so far and in between. Some homes were verbally abusive, some were physically abusive. Or maybe you found more acceptance in the people on the street than you did from your family. Or maybe you lost your parents at a young age due to a tragic event. Maybe you lost a brother or a sister. You could have come from a family where the home was financially stricken. Jeez. Okay. And as a child, maybe you was bullied in the neighborhood, bullied in the school. Maybe you was put out your house at an early age. Your childhood, it raised you up to the fact that you possibly did not, I gotta talk right. You possibly did not feel as though you were brought up in a home that always consisted of love, that always consisted of stability. You really felt like you were sort of being either left out, you left being pushed, you sort of had to go into a different mindset than childhood number 1. Childhood number 1 could have been in a home to where they was probably motivated and encouraged. Childhood number 2, you probably had to start doing things at an early age to where, whereas childhood number 1, who had the loving family, everybody hanging out together, could come home, go outside and play and be a child. Whereas childhood number 2, you had to help around the house. You had to help your sisters. You had to help your brothers. You had to actually sort of play a either babysitter or some type of guardian role in the house as far as maintaining the house. So there's a bit of a difference in the two childhoods. And these are the things that we want to talk about because a lot of that is going to affect you, the person today. Now, after hearing each of these descriptions, which one would you say closely relates to your childhood life? Now, some people I'm not talking about everybody, but some people, they may feel like they are definitely closer to childhood number 1. And other people are going to say, well, for me, it's more childhood number 2. But you will have in some cases that in-between person, that may have had childhood number 1, but there could have been some type of traumatic event, like from some of the circumstances from childhood number 2. Let's just say, for example, you was in a home that was financially stable and the family ate at the dinner table every night. The family had functions together. It all seemed possible. When it came to schooling, they were all like encouraging you, motivating you, but there could have been some sexual abuse. There could have been some physical abuse. There could have been some verbal abuse. You got to keep in mind that young boys and men experience verbal, sexual, and physical abuse also, not just women, but it doesn't matter. Whether you're male or female, you're a young child, no one should be experiencing that. But if you came up in a home that had all of those things, but you had that type of traumatic event, that death, that loss, maybe you was an adopted child. Maybe you was in a foster home and you was moved around a lot. So you never had the stability of an actual home. You only knew foster parents, so maybe you're that in-between person like that had those type of experiences. So some homes are loving, but the financial aspects of things can make it seem like your childhood was depressing. So you always got some factor from everybody's childhood that could be traumatic, that could be positive, that could be negative. So you always have one of those factors that comes into play. So that's why when I ask you to think about your childhood, when you reflect on your childhood, and I'm asking, what do you think about? What comes to mind when you think of your early years? Everybody's going to have something different at some point. There may be some similarities, but there are going to be some things that are different about your childhood compared to your friend, your neighbor, or somebody else. Sometimes you may have even one son may be treated differently than another son, one daughter treated differently than the sons or her sister. So things happen in your childhood. And in discussing all this and going over childhood number one, childhood number two, and also the middle ground for childhood, this brings us to the question of the day. How has your childhood affected your adult life regarding your relationships, the way you raise your kids, your communications, your beliefs, stereotypes, and your expectations from people, your expectations from your husband, your relationships, your jobs, the expectations on you yourself. How has your childhood brought all that into play into today? Has it pushed you to be successful, or has it created weaknesses in your life in certain areas? You may have a great career where you are just killing it, but when it comes to friends and relationships, you're self-destructive. Nothing seems to work out. Or maybe it's the other way around. You're great with relationships, you're great with friends and relationships, but when it comes to your career, you're struggling. Nothing seems to pan out. You just can't seem to get it together when it comes to the job and the career. And we want to look at how your childhood upbringing could impact that. Now, when you think about the interactions between your parents, was it something you said, that is like how you want to be treated or how I'm going to treat the person I am with? Because that's what you got to think about. Was something said from your mother or father that made you think, I want to be treated like that, or I don't want to be treated like that, or if I meet somebody, I'm going to treat them like that. Many of us fail to recognize the subconscious behaviors that we display based on our childhood, especially within our household. If your mother was outspoken and negative towards men, you may have picked up that mentality or that trait. Especially you have witnessed her like dealing with multiple bad relationships. You may have created a stereotype of how you feel about men, a generalization. If she felt like men were bad and she said, you know what, every man, I just need to get what I can get. I'm tired of this. You're seeing her hurt. So you begin to portray men like that. And when you see something similar to what you may have heard your mother say, or seen her go through with another man, that may trigger something in you to where you start to feel like, guards up, I'm on high alert. There's a situation about to arise. So that's why we have to make sure that, we consider how we communicate. We have to consider how we go about things in life, the reason we do things, the reason we act a certain way, behave a certain way. Like I said, consider how you communicate. Are you a very vocal and expressive person? Say your mother was very vocal and expressive. Do you consider yourself to be very vocal and expressive? But what if your father was more like a quiet and reserved type person that didn't really express himself much? And this was very common with Black men, especially Black men coming up in the 60s and the 70s. And there's a reason for that, but I get into that. But there's a reason they were like that. And a lot of young men and sons coming up sort of adopted that behavior, that mentality of not speaking very much, not saying very much, being very quiet and reserved. So when you speak to your spouse, are you more speaking like your mother, or are you like your father? Because your mate may not understand why you don't express yourself very much, because you may be emulating what you saw in the home from your parents. Do you speak to your spouse in more of a sarcastic tone, or are you pleasant? Do you listen, or do you hide away from conflict? And I'm not saying that any of these are bad, but depending on how you use your communication tools, it may have a negative impact on your relationship. And, these are things that we have to really think about. And I know a lot of people, when they think about their childhood, some people, like I said, they don't want to see the connection between their behavior today and how they acted when how their parents behaved or things they may have picked up from their parents. But in reality, subconsciously, we do adapt from things in our environment. That includes our home. That includes, the streets we grew up in. There are lessons you have been taught from other people, things you have observed that may have, sort of impact you emotionally to where you honestly feel like this is not right. I don't ever want to see that. I don't ever want to do that. I don't ever want to be that. But you have to be able to self-examine yourself to say, you know what? I saw this behavior when I was a child. Am I exhibiting this based on my parents or this person or this neighbor? You have to be mindful of those things because too often we're so quick to check other people and, put them on the spot, but we fail to really examine ourselves and how we behave and the things we do and how we impact other people. We fail to acknowledge or address our own, issues that we have picked up from our childhood, our behaviors, our attitudes, the things that we do that impact other people. But we don't think about that because we are very good at putting the mirror on somebody else. But as they always say, one of the hardest things for most people to do is put the mirror on themselves. Hey, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. And when we come back, we're going to really dive deep into this because I want you to understand the importance of this topic. We'll be right back.
Hey, Simply Straight Talk family. Your host, Reggie, will be right back. So don't you dare touch that dial.
RM Viaging is a company based on life's journey and sharing life lessons with the world in the form of laughter and reflection, inspiring people to go after their dreams and not giving up on life. RM Viaging creates inspirational music and motivational speeches designed to motivate all age groups. Visit our website at www.rmviaging.com to hear samples of our music. You will also find motivational articles on our blog page titled New Life, New Mind blog. We also have a weekly podcast hosted by Reggie called Simply Straight Talk, all on our website at www.rmviaging.com.
We hope you're enjoying the show. As our listeners, this show is made possible because of your support. Make sure you click the subscribe button and leave a comment. Thank you for being a part of the show, and now back to your host, Reggie Maddox.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the second part of today's show. Man, today we're talking about, has your childhood affected your adulthood? Now, like I said in the beginning, some of us, some people don't want to remember their childhood. And I don't fault nobody for that because we all had a different experience. You could have two kids that come from the same home with two totally different experiences. And often that can be showed in the relationship. Now, I know it's a movie, but when you think about Guardians of the Galaxy, when you think about Gamora's experience versus her sister's experience, it was two totally different ideas of the family dynamic. Now, maybe you are in a relationship with your sister or your brother or whatever, with your siblings to where you don't have that relationship. It's more of a rivalry. And it really all stems from your childhood. And you have to think about things like that because it can impact you today as how you're living as an adult. But you know what? I'm getting the feeling that some of y'all are not going to be open and honest about this topic. Okay, y'all just not going to come down to earth and be realistic about it. But you have to understand that this is how and what it's going to take for you to improve yourself and fact check yourself. Okay, I understand some people may not have had the best relationship with their parents, with their siblings, and you have decided that you want nothing to do with them and definitely don't want to be anything like them mentally. But the fact is, sometimes subconsciously, we still exhibit those behaviors unintentionally. Gosh, I messed that up. But anyway, listen, this is my point. Let me share something with you. My family grew up in a neighborhood called Alpine. It was known for drugs. And I mean, weekly, there were unmarked police cars coming through to make arrests, chasing people. There were shootings often taking place. And my mother just seemed to be attracted to abusive relationships. Believe me, I have horror stories of what took place in our home. And it wasn't until I got into high school, well, junior high school actually, when I realized that I was becoming sort of a product of my environment. Because I think it was in the gym, but it was this girl named Frances Ochoa, I think. And she was making fun of me in gym class. And everybody, was laughing because my nickname in junior high school was Goofy, and I could not stand it. Anyway, because I get on a rant on that. She was making fun of me and everybody was laughing. I walked down the bleachers and slapped her straight across the face. And now, this is no Hollywood movie where, at the end we became best of friends and all this type of stuff. Now, although I felt she deserved it, that does not make it right on my part. I'm not apologizing. I'm just saying it wasn't right on my part. Okay. But I realized at a youthful age that I was reproducing the behavior of the men whom I said I would never be like in my life. You know what I'm saying? I cannot stand to see men disrespect women. I cannot stand to see men mistreat women. And here I was at a young age in junior high school. It was the first time I actually hit somebody. And the first one I hit was a woman. Well, it was a girl. She wasn't a woman. We were kids. And, I'm doing the same thing that I was like, I don't never want to be that. But it was constantly what I was seeing. Now, since then, I have never raised my hand to a woman. And I'm opening this up to you so you will understand that you can look back on your childhood and identify what is negative, and you can make a change. You don't have to be a product. You just have to accept the fact and recognize. Fortunate for me, at a youthful age, I recognized where I was starting to make a wrong turn, a behavior that was not good. So we have to acknowledge that. And if we don't, then we're not going to get anywhere. You see, as we begin to discuss and we get into the effects of our childhood on our life, I want to make something clear that this is not about male versus female. This is not about male versus female. This is about you versus you, the inner person within you that still holds on to some of the things from your childhood. Because not only can it affect your relationship with your parents, but it can affect others as well. You may find, like I said earlier when I was talking about some people may have problems on the jobs. If you grew up having, to do things on your own, then that may reflect in how you work today. Because if you felt like your parents was never there for you, your sister and brother was never there for you, you always had to defend yourself. Anything you had to do for school, you had to do it yourself. Anything you want, you had to get yourself. So maybe you were pushed to overachieve and you feel like your coworkers don't meet up to your standards now. People don't meet up to your standards. They don't do it fast enough. They don't do it as quickly as you want it done or the way you want it done. Because the way you came up, you just don't have confidence that a person is going to be there for you. That could be in the job. That can also be in your relationships. It could be with your mate. You could be with somebody. It's not that you don't love them, but just based on the experience of your life, you just felt like everything you had to do yourself. And being that was the case, that's how you deal with your relationships now. If you think your mate should do something, it should be right now at this moment. And if it's not, then it's like, I got to do it myself because I can't trust other people to do it. You may have difficulty maintaining friendships. You might be untrusting, or they may have to pledge their loyalty solely to you and no one else. If you grew up as a child and it was just pretty much like you didn't really have friends, you didn't feel really close, or you felt betrayed, you felt bullied, you might develop this type of mentality to where you may have a difficult time maintaining friends based on the fact that you don't see friends as being a realistic option, because it's always been more of a fantasy sci-fi movie type thing than an actual reality, and mentally, you may doubt yourself. You may doubt your looks, your ability to succeed. You may have a lack of expectations or too much expectations, because you may have grew up in a home to where all the expectations on you were to be a success, rich, famous, the provider. And if you have gotten to a point in life to where you don't sort of meet that standard, you may start to feel like you're a failure, like you haven't accomplished anything. If you were never encouraged or told that you can do great things, if you was never, sort of motivated by people to succeed or accomplish something, you may doubt yourself. You may feel like, well, you're not that, you're just an average person, or you're just a below average person. If your sister or your brother was the one that was getting all of the dates and the most popular and you wasn't, you may start to question your looks. You may start to question who you are because you feel like you don't measure up, especially if everyone else in the family seems to be doing well and you're just sort of floating along, tinkering along. You're above the water, but you just sort of scaling the water and everybody else seems to be in yachts. You're going to start to really question, and you're going to have that mentality because you're going to feel like you were the one in the family that didn't meet the standard. You were the one in the family that failed. And it's not that you are a failure. It's not that you can't succeed. It's just that sometimes when we come up in life, we are giving obstacles, and the obstacles can be verbal, but mainly these things come from our childhood because it does play a part in how we treat people, how we interact. And you got to realize something. Some people grew up in one household for 18 years. You may have foster kids that bounced around for 18 years. So you have 18 years of these different experiences that subconsciously or consciously you may have learned and now exhibited. So all of a sudden you have to work on removing 18 years of a lesson. Someone who came up in a foster home, they may really feel like, nothing is stable. That's why they might be very clingy, very attached. When something goes wrong, you may hear them say something like, oh, you're just going to leave, because they're used to people in their life leaving. People who are used to people walking out of their life often will feel like that's the first option. Either I'm going to leave before you so I don't get left again, or they're going to have a mentality, well, you're going to leave anyway. You know what I'm saying? Because they have become accustomed to it. It is how they came up as a child. And these are the things that we have to sort of think about when we are thinking about our childhood. You can't pinpoint one thing and say, okay, this is the reason you're like this, or this is the reason you're like that, because every individual childhood is different in some aspect. Only if that person reveals to you in detail how they feel about their childhood, how they feel about their upbringing, can you able to really kind of understand some of the things that they are. You may feel that they're being petty about, or you may feel that they're being naggy about, because it's something in them that sort of attached to them that they're still carrying with them. And they may be struggling to fix it. They may recognize that, hey, this is a problem. I need to deal with this. But sometimes you're not really comfortable telling people things because everybody can't listen without judging. You know what I'm saying? So with that, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with more. Well, actually, we'll be back with the final thoughts of today's show.
Free your mind, free your voice right here on Simply Straight Talk.
Hey, we all know that Atlanta, Georgia is a big city, and sometimes you might need just a little bit of help. But you know what? That's why we have Legs Concierge Services. Are you looking for someone to help you with errands, event planning, dog walking, organizing, shopping, or maybe you're in need of a personal assistant? Then you need to contact Legs Concierge Services, operating in Atlanta, Georgia. For more information on these and additional services, contact rarmstrong105@gmail.com. That's rarmstrong105@gmail.com. Remember, time is precious, so let Legs Concierge Services help you enjoy it so much better.
Are you ready for the straight truth? Reggie, what's the final word for today?
Hey everybody, this is Reggie Matters, man, and we are back for the final thoughts of today's show. Now today we are talking about how your childhood can affect your adulthood. We're talking about how these minor issues, sometimes traumatic issues that you had to deal with from your childhood has lingered into your adulthood. It can affect you on the job. It can affect you in your relationship with your friendships. It can affect you even in the way that you are raising your kids today. You know, you may be an aggressive parent. You may be a parent that's trying to be a friend because you felt like your parents weren't a friend to you. You felt like your parents were not relatable. So you're trying to be more relatable with your kids. You're trying to do everything the opposite of what you experienced in your life as a child, hoping that it works with your children. And you have to recognize how these things can either be positive or how they can be negative. And if you don't take time to really self-reflect and analyze the behaviors that you are exhibiting towards others, then you will never truly understand why your relationship doesn't seem to work, why you can't seem to be satisfied with a particular job or a specific job, why you can't get along with coworkers, why you can't get along with your husband, your wife, your kids. Because a lot of times we do subconsciously carry things from our childhood. And in some cases, consciously, we have picked up things. And we are now exhibiting those behaviors and actions towards others, and it's costing us. If you really want to examine yourself, you have to examine what is it from your childhood that worked for you that was beneficial and what is negative. Regardless of the fact of how you feel like you may not care for your parents, you may not care for your neighborhood, your old friends. You know, I have heard mothers say that I wish you were never born, or I've heard mothers say that I should have killed the children in their sleep. These are things I have heard said from mothers. I have heard fathers who said that they were leaving and they were not coming back. And this is with no notice. I have seen fathers stay out on the street and talk to them who actually said that they're there because they can't do anything else. They don't have any other option. That was their viewpoint. But ultimately, it affects the child. All of these things affect the child. It affects the person, the way they grow up. Of feeling abandoned or feeling left out or feeling like they can't achieve or feeling like they have to overachieve. And all these things will either push people away. It will either send other people into the same pattern. Much worse, it would create something in the children that they're bringing into the world today. When you have hate speech and hate messages about men and hate speech and hate messages about women, you are creating that in that son or in that daughter. You have to be mindful of your actions, because we have too many things that we're carrying from our childhood into adulthood that's affecting us negatively and in a way that is not going to progress us forward as people, as individuals. Personal growth and development is so crucial, and many of us overlook that. There are people who can work so hard on their professional career and growth, but they never work on their personal growth. You have to keep that in mind. You have to. All right, everybody, that's the end of the show. Thank you for joining us. And don't forget, please check out Angelique. And I'm going to leave her link down below. And also Toonlover, their link down below. They are some of the best voiceover artists. I love working with them. And also, don't forget to check out Z-Lot. I'm going to leave his link down below too. My man he's the one that does all of the post editing for my podcast, man, that makes them sound so great. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you guys next week.
Thanks for listening to the Simply Straight Talk Show with Reggie Maddox. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our podcast to your friends and colleagues. And please leave us a positive review on iTunes. Be sure to check out our archive section on iTunes, Spotify, Libsyn, and YouTube. Join us next time for another edition of the Simply Straight Talk Show.